There's a moment in every celebrity interview where the person stops performing and just tells the truth. No punchline, no PR polish, just something real. And that's exactly what happened when Mark Labbett, the man millions know as the Beast from The Chase, quietly admitted something that had nothing to do with quiz questions and everything to do with simply trying to survive a plane journey. Because here's the setup. ITV has just sent its most famous quiz villains out into the world for a brand new spin-off, The Chase Around the World. 6 pairs of contestants, 6 chasers, secret international locations, and a life-changing prize pot waiting at the end for whoever tracks them all down. Bradley Walsh has been teasing it with real enthusiasm, describing it as a global chase where the more you know, the further you go. It sounds thrilling on paper, exciting, even glamorous. But for one of the show's biggest stars, getting to those glamorous locations came with a very different kind of story. Mark stands at 6'7". And speaking to The Times, he said something that on the surface sounds almost like a passing complaint, but the more you sit with it, the more it reveals. He said that for him, travel isn't about anticipation or excitement at all. It's mainly about discomfort. Think about how quietly devastating that admission is. Most of us board a flight thinking about where we're headed. For Mark, apparently, just enduring the flight itself is the whole ordeal. And then came the detail that really shifts the emotional tone of the story. After a flight back from Paris, he described his legs being left in what he called a tangle. Not sore. Not stiff. Tangled. It's such a specific, almost uncomfortable word choice, and there's something quietly disarming about a public figure describing his own body that plainly, without softening it into a joke. But what he said next is the part that genuinely stopped people scrolling. Even with business class written into his contract for long-haul filming, Mark explained he still has to get up and physically walk the aisle mid-flight. Not for comfort. Not out of restlessness. Because staying still too long puts him at risk of DVT, deep vein thrombosis, a blood clot that can form during long periods of immobility and, in serious cases, become life-threatening. He said it without drama, almost matter-of-factly. Keep moving or risk something genuinely dangerous. Sit with that for a second, because it completely reframes how we see him. A man who has spent well over a decade commanding a studio with sharp answers and quiet intimidation, quietly managing a real medical risk every single time he boards a plane for work. There's something almost jarring about that contrast. The Beast, vulnerable to something as ordinary as sitting still for too long. Then there's the airport moment, which somehow manages to be funny and quietly moving at the same time. Landing from that same Paris trip, Mark said he was so stiff a passport control officer offered him the assistance lane. His first reaction was surprise. Was he really walking that badly? Then he caught his own reflection and realized, in his words, that yes, he genuinely was. It's such a human beat. A flicker of disbelief followed by honest acceptance of exactly how visible his discomfort had become to a total stranger. But here's where the story deepens into something even more meaningful. Because this isn't Mark's first time speaking openly about his body and his health. Back in 2018, he admitted that finding a car he could comfortably fit into had become genuinely difficult, joking that manufacturers seemed to be designing driver compartments with less and less room for someone his size. Small, almost throwaway comments like that, when you line them up together, start to paint a much bigger picture. And that bigger picture becomes even more powerful once you remember Mark's health journey beyond travel discomfort altogether. In 2017, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, a moment that clearly became a turning point. Since then, he's spoken about undergoing a significant transformation, going from around 29 stone at his heaviest down to roughly 18 stone, through a combination of increased movement, smaller portions, cutting back on sugar and refined carbohydrates, and shifting toward a higher protein way of eating. That's not a quick fix. That's years of quiet, consistent discipline, largely happening away from cameras, long before any of us ever heard him mention a plane journey to Paris. So when you place all of this side by side, the DVT comment stops feeling like a random travel complaint. It becomes part of a much longer, much more human story about a man actively managing his health, actively protecting himself, in ways most of his audience probably never considered while watching him dominate a quiz podium. Maybe that's what makes this story worth sitting with. Not the height, not even the diagnosis, but the reminder that the people we watch effortlessly command a screen are often quietly working every single day just to take care of themselves. What stood out to you most? The honesty about the DVT risk, or the bigger picture of everything Mark has clearly been working through behind the scenes?